So, right, so then I'm calling to order the June 5th meeting of the Woodstock Finance Committee. The agenda is as you see on the screen in one moment. This is the agenda: review the priorities, discuss management reporting and forecasting, a work plan for that, discuss an approach to the other three topics, and then an update on the police debrief. We don't have any community members, so there's no community comments, and we don't yet have minutes prepared. We've posted the video of the last meeting, but we don't yet have minutes prepared because we have no administrative support, something that I meant to mention to Eric, but haven't done that yet. So there is no budget for the finance committee meeting, hence no administrator and no minutes. So I will try to solve that problem. I don't think we should solve that problem ourselves. I don't think it's appropriate. So we can discuss that offline. I don't know if there's any of you who disagree. Or we can discuss it now, actually. Anyone disagree with that?
Unless there is a quote unquote legal / formal requirements for minutes, if the videos are sufficient.
They are not legal.
So I thought the videos were for a year, the next year.
Well, that's interesting. That could be. But in general terms, they're not. That in the minutes it's quite specific that you have to have written minutes.
And you said you had something that can transform what we say into just a script, a transcript. That is written now, and that would qualify for minutes, right?
I'd rather answer that specific question offline.
All right.
Not in a recorded session.
Because I like that idea.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So is it all right if we follow this agenda? Again, it's sort of a small group.
Yep.
Yeah.
We can, we can raise questions on any real topics, but we're basically just trying to forge ahead. All right, let's start with management reporting and forecasting. In very simple terms on the next page, I just tried to lay out what it is I think we're trying to get to. I suspect all of you will agree on this. The question is whether or not there are any or a lot of other things to add to it. I hope not, but that's open for discussion. I think we want to get to these 7 things. And we're not going to, by the way, in a minute, I'll show you, we're going to get to half of these this year.
So this is the promised one.
Correct. Correct. For management reporting and forecasting, not for the finance committee. Yeah. Simple, easy to understand monthly income statements and fund balance reports at all relevant levels. And by that, I mean, let's call it entities, the town, the village, the sewer, and then also departments within those, police, DPW. So those 2 levels. I don't think there's any.
Capital, would you include capital reserve as a fund balance?
Yes, absolutely. By fund balance reports, I mean, basically, like if we were a company, it would be our balance sheet, but it's basically, I don't think we have to track the exact fund balance in the pension account, but basically what are the funds that the town has discretion over?
Okay.
And sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Tom?
Just to be clear, this is for the purpose of all participants in town where they could view this on a regular basis, or just for the committee? Is there going to be a layered system in terms of information? What is your perception? I don't have an opinion here.
Right. No, I think the first recipients of the report would be the select board and the village trustees and the management team, the finance committee. I would expect those would be the groupies who would have all complete access. Depending on how we develop this, the information is public. And so I believe I wouldn't spend a lot of time this year making it digitally accessible online, but it should be designed so that any of those groups should be able to.
We have a playbook. If we
Right.
build something that could ultimately be rolled out.
Correct. And depending on the temporary system that we have to do that will be easier to make public to everyone than the actual final system. So
I'm sorry, can I request that perhaps we take maybe 2 minutes on each one of those bullets and illustrate why we think, for example, in the first bullet, they're not easy to understand. Like maybe
Sure.
show a couple of examples. Why we think that the history is not easily accessible.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful because not everybody has,
Yeah.
this.
no, absolutely. So let's do it as we go through each bullet. So simple, easy to understand monthly income statement and fund balance reports. Jill, have you ever, so I think on the fund balance, it's quite easy to say. Jill, have you ever seen a fund balance for the town? Okay.
Okay.
So it doesn't exist.
All right, good. So that takes care of
With
that.
respect to the monthly income statements, Tom, I sent you a form, the second one, not the first one, not the one with 25,000 lines, the one with 1,700
Yeah.
lines.
Precisely.
Right? Does anyone think that an income statement should have 1,700 lines? Yeah,
No.
and here, by the way,
I was just wondering if there
Yeah.
was other things than whatever we were
well,
exposed.
actually, let me show you, let me just pull up now an example of,
That report is just a dump of the general ledger, the whole thing.
Right.
Mhm.
And there are many things on there that, you know, as we discussed, are the purview of accounting, and no one even needs to see them. Like, say, the checkbook or something. I mean, there's a lot of, that would just be an example of something you don't usually see on a management report.
I mean, are we talking about the document that we looked at last year as we had all of our?
Yes.
meetings? Okay.
Yeah, that's the general ledger.
that's our income.
Okay,
Everything-
now I'm in agreement with whatever statements are being.
All right, yeah, no, I'm just kind of giving an example. So, but let me give you another, let me give you just a very specific example. So what I'm gonna show you here is, so I'm just gonna pause, because I was gonna bring this up later, but I can use it now to just, well, actually, you know what, let's just wait a little bit. I think, because this is, stay at the high level, I'll take you through the detail in a minute. Okay, summary reports. This could have just said summary reports.
They don't exist.
Right, they don't exist, and we would want them to hire variances with budget, maybe changes in trends, in particular variances with budget.
Seasonality included or not?
Absolutely included, it's not currently included. So we currently have a variance report against 3/12 of the budget if we're into a third month.
Got it.
Responsible for this.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, okay, appropriate closing procedures to maintain the integrity of reporting, to maintain the integrity of monthly reporting. So the word monthly is critical, otherwise it's not needed. So we don't close financial reports. So when we issue a financial report for September, that report could change in November or
That's
December.
the problem with the auditor's report, because the lack of close, you know, as soon as it goes over whatever period of time it is,
Right.
it effectively never closes. It's always going on in perpetuity, so that there's no hard line.
But it's not just the problem with the auditor's report, it's also the problem with monthly reporting, because you
Well,
can't,
one.
yeah, right, fine, yeah, right.
But as a select board member.
Yeah.
You never have any information to make a decision about whether to purchase something or not purchase something, because you never know your fund balances. Or your-
So we don't have actuals on a monthly basis. is what
We
you're
do,
saying.
We do.
but those actuals, if we report September, revenue was 100 and expenses were 99.
So you know what you spend in the ledger doc.
No.
You can't use it to make decisions.
No, but you don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know what you've spent. You mostly know what you spent.
Well, okay,
But
we
he-
like to think we did.
No, but right, but because you have no other choice. I mean, it's a sort of, but what can happen, and what Ellen and I have talked about this, so what should happen, and this takes more work and more discipline, but we won't get that this year. This is one of the things we're not gonna get this year, I don't think. But what happens is that in January, we may pay a bill that should have been accounted for in October. And what we can currently do, I don't know that we always do it, but what we are able to do, because we have no policy against it, is we put that expense back into October. Now, the select board has already seen the P&L for October. And,
So there have to be adjustments.
but there aren't, because you can't, and there shouldn't be, right? You know, so you should book that October expense in January and explain the variance in January by saying it was so,
So
January.
is the expense in, I'm sorry,
That's all right, no, go ahead.
okay. So are you describing this as when the benefit is incurred? In other words, you're spending money, you get a benefit, right? There's cost related to it. So are you accounting for the cash flow, or are you accounting for the benefit?
It's mostly a cash-based, it's a mix of accrual and cash account.
So it's a mix.
Okay, that's That's an incident where there wasn't an accrual. There should have been an
Correct.
accrual in October.
That's
Correct.
the direction I'm going.
Not there, so they just
But-
put the bill, they put the bill there instead.
Right, but even if there was an accrual, well, yes, if we had accruals, obviously then the people
got
would
it.
try to get it back again. But basically, because the financial reporting, there's nothing. The financial reporting mindset of the town is that the relevant period, the only relevant period, is the year. And so they are adhering to financial processes that are faithful to that. There's no reason to go back and have a,
No,
You're right.
I was just curious.
yeah, right, no, I understand.
You particularly with something that, let's say you're paying in
Right.
January, that you could receive the benefit in December.
Right.
And that is.
Yeah, no, right, we may need to have this is why we're not gonna get to this particular point this year, because putting this in place is a lot more work. But to be able to do forecasting and to be able to tell the select board at the end of October or the early November, we did it 7 days, we were slow, 7 working days after the close of the month, we were slow. I thought in my organization, I thought we could always do it, we should be able to do it in 5. That we tell the select board, okay, through October, here's where we are. Based on our forecast, here's where we're going to end up. Do you want to make any decisions based on that? In order to be able to have the integrity of that, we have to have an
Yeah,
accrual system.
But these 7 days or 3 months, it's all based on feeds. If you don't have the feeds of the data,
Right.
it is implausible to have a deadline of whatever it is.
No, they have. Yeah, they have the data, that they don't have the processes, I think, well, anyway, we have to find out why it's not happening, but it's not happening. So we need to have appropriate closing procedures, otherwise we can't really have a monthly process. We need easily accessible history. We have history. I'm going to show you. In fact, that's what I sent to you, Tom. We have that was 6.5 years of history. We have now 8.5 or 9 years, maybe even longer than that. It is it's so difficult that it is essentially inaccessible. I mean, it took me
That's
a
at the
year
line that you.
at the line
level
item
you
level.
get. And it's even,
And at the higher level, by the way, Zoe has done some nice work to prepare with Sarah to prepare a few years of financial statements that are history at a very high level at the kind of audit model. So there is that history.
there's also an issue when you come to do the budget. So you do a budget for FY, let's say this year, we did the budget for FY 2024 based on actuals for FY
22,
21.
no, 22.
We
We were in 23, right?
Okay.
So you're
So
skipping
we
a
were-
year.
We were like, it felt like we were 18 months out of date.
There's no way around that if we have town meeting and no good forecasting.
Well, why can't the year that finishes in June 30th, why can't that year be ready and closed by September when you start to do the budget process?
Oh,
So
it
it's
can.
3 months.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, it can't. Sorry. But we weren't using FY 22. We used some FY 22 data. We did.
We use budget FY 22.
No, correct. So I'm sorry. You're right.
Use budget FY
sorry.
22, which is
Agree.
so you're 18 months out of date when you
Yeah.
try to do a budget. And
Yeah.
so I'd like,
Yeah.
easily accessible history means annual for the budget as well.
Means finishing FY 23 by September
Yeah.
2023. And by finishing, it doesn't mean auditing. That's too tight for an audit, but it does mean reporting that we can reliably use,
Yes.
which we should be able to do if we have accurate monthly reporting.
Yes.
With the town benefits on seasonality, right? In other words, second quarter should be compared to second quarter of prior years. and
We-
Is that?
That would be a level of budget that we
Yeah.
don't do right now, but it would be nice to do. So we don't look at anything except annually.
Excuse me.
No, that's right, but the point about forecasting here is, so history, so the next point. So, Kareem, we're all agreed on the easily accessible history. Once we have easy accessible history by month, which gives us sort of seasonality, it doesn't give us.
Yes.
History-based monthly forecasting with manager override. So what I mean by this is that once we have the proper 7 years of monthly data summed up at, not at 1,700 levels, but at 20 lines, salaries, or, supplies or utilities, we should be able to do an automated monthly forecast just based on seasonality. In the last 8 years, the fire department spent this much on vehicles in the first 6 months, 42% of the total. Therefore, we're going to forecast 58% is left.
Yep.
We
And-
push a button for that forecasting, but any manager who can do better than that or wants to can. It's just that what we don't want to do, and I've had this discussion before, is to force a system where managers are required to update their forecasts on the basis, because they probably may not be ready to, they may not have the information to. Some of them may be excellent at it, so we don't want to stop anyone who's better than this system from doing it, but we don't want to force them to do it.
Right.
That's the idea.
So when you get to your budgeting system, then the discussion that we have with the managers is about which things they want to change from the forecast.
Absolutely.
But it's gonna be interesting, because once we have, sorry, it sounds a little bit too repetitive, real-time actuals, that number is gonna be compared to the automated forecast, and then maybe they can adjust, because if the forecast says, you should have spent 52%, and in reality, the actuals show that for this year, they only spent, 22%, then the manager should go in and override, do something about
Well,
it.
the first thing that will happen, presumably, if it's a big department and it's that actual numbers, is the select board in their summary report will get a statement that says we're way ahead of forecast. Do you want to make any decisions?
Exactly.
But we don't want to indirectly incentivize people to spend money to be sure
No.
that they're on budget.
Yeah.
Right? And that's my biggest fear when you do,
That's the
we used to call
municipal.
it scaling.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we have two choices. Sorry, there are 3 ways to do this, I would say. What we do now, well, there's 4 ways. Do nothing. Do what we do now, which is 1/12. Do scaling, or have a management team that updates their forecasts. The aspiration would eventually be to get to a management team that updates their forecasts, and takes responsibility for their forecasts and knows what they're doing, and that we don't have an audit, we don't do scaling, but
Yeah, but let's pretend, right? The talent pool.
Yeah.
Who's doing some of these jobs, you can ask for anything.
Right.
The deliverable may be far different than that.
well, and in fact, asking, I think there is a capacity issue in terms of time. We don't know if we're staffed properly or not. We don't know how hard people are working. We're not in a position to question any of that now. I don't know that we ever will be. So I think that scaling is a big step forward from, I agree it has a downside, but by the way, we can always turn it off. We can always get rid of the button. Yeah, but
This is my intro. I'm
Yeah.
trying not to be-
all right. So that's history-based monthly forecasting with management override.
Mhm.
Data reconciled to and driven by the capital plan, and I'm going to argue a personnel plan. We all went through the budgeting process, and many of the questions that come up in the budgeting process with the select board and with the managers have to do with either capital items or personnel. I thought this labor agreement was $13 an hour. You're at $12 an hour. Why is the number of hours going up or down? Why is this different? Whatever. Or why, whatever, the same thing on the capital side. The capital, so that's the problem. The budget and the capital, there is no, the personnel plan is, Zoe has all of the information, but it's not her fault. She has to work as hard as she possibly can just to kind of add up all the numbers and get them in. And the same thing is sort of true with the capital plan. We don't, Jill, you can talk more accurately about what the current state of it, but we don't really have a list precisely of everything, right? Is that?
There's a capital plan that's 2 years old that hasn't been updated, and it's not at all linked with the budget.
Right.
So decisions are made independent of the capital plan. And there was an example at the last meeting about buying a fire truck. Totally
The
random.
good news is that there is a capital.
Yes,
Right.
so we have something to work off that we
Which
need
we didn't
to
have before.
update.
So I asked early on, I didn't know who to ask,
You asked me, among others, maybe.
but I did ask if there is a list of all liabilities and due dates and.
Yeah, there
There
is.
is. Um,
It's in the audit, isn't it?
I read it in the audit. I saw the line item.
When the lady that worked here with, what was her name?
Beth?
Beth, she had prepared a spreadsheet a few years
Yeah.
ago, breaking down all the liabilities. I don't know if anybody's maintaining that.
Well, I think that I think the town keeps, all of these questions can be answered by Zoe.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
by the way,
Just,
it's.
yeah. It's just that she
a
can't,
final-
she has to stop doing something else to answer.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
not as if there, there's a 90-hour work week.
Right, exactly.
I
That's
mean-
the problem.
There's a funnel that's this wide and everybody wants the data here.
Right, exactly.
And it's very difficult.
All right, so I think the one thing that I'd like to add is this concept of a personnel plan. We use this at my,
Can you define that?
yeah, well, we use this at my last organization. It's basically simply a spreadsheet with every single person that we pay salary or benefits to. And the information that's needed to drive and forecast what their salary and track what their salary and benefits are. It's not a timesheet. It's Kareem is full-time. He's in the accounting department. His salary is X. His benefits are Y. He's subject to labor agreement Z, whatever.
That would be great, because that would answer a lot of the questions that we were asked from the floor about why are the health benefits varying so much by department and things, and
Right.
you'd have that spreadsheet and it will be
Right,
there.
and
all
Zoe
their unions.
has that, I think, but she doesn't,
Yes,
she has it in a format that's, I saw it one, what I mean, it's a format for her, and so to pull it together.
all their
here.
union, all the promises would be there going forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, hey, Eric, how are you? Good.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. You're welcome to listen in. Where, if, do you want to join us or you're?
No, I.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. All right, so I think in the same way that I think of the capital plan as a spreadsheet with assets, every asset and whatever information we need about the assets, what's to do, what the debt, whatever. I see the same thing with people. And those are the two categories where I would say 75 or 80% of the questions and the debate, which was at that level, this particular asset, this particular person, or this particular small group of people, the questions were about that. We want to elevate the questions to, should our
Are
salaries
we
be going?
talking questions in select board
Correct,
meetings
yes.
directed to the select board?
Yeah.
Got it.
No, or directed by the select board,
To you.
or directed, or from us to the departments, or from the public, basically the discussion, whoever's participating.
So it's defensive medicine, basically.
Well,
It's understanding as well,
Yeah.
because we were being asked questions and the select board were asked questions and later by the public. And we didn't have the information, and frequently the questions had to be referred to Zoe. So I felt like all the information is residing with Zoe, who often has to look something up. And the comprehension, the understanding wasn't with us making decisions.
Okay, so I'm just introducing the concept of a personnel plan. Okay, and then lastly, the data reconciled to the audit, so that there is some truth. And the data in NIMRIC is not reconciled to the audit. Sorry, that's a verb. There isn't. It's reconciled to the audit except when it isn't.
So do you take your audit as gospel and then work
Correct.
on that each year? What happens if there's a mistake in the audit?
Well, there's nothing, I think that's a future aspiration. There's nothing,
Right.
I think there's nothing we can
Okay.
do. Right now,
So I'm sorry, so what you're saying, just to clarify, is once the audit closes, and I don't know if there's a aspiration to get it done earlier, but once the
there
audit closes, then we check what we have against that audit
Correct.
and make any adjustments.
correct. And by the way, the auditor gives us a list of changes to make.
The audit closes when? For the prior year?
So June 30th, close the book.
Hmm.
Well, Ellen, what would your timing be?
Well, it seemed to me that the audit closed late. Weren't there some complaints about getting data?
So
I mean,
when
it
would you,
could close earlier.
if you were creating a calendar in an ideal world, when would the books close? When would the audit be ready?
Well, we close at the end of June. And the audit shouldn't take more than maybe 3 months.
I think it's 6 right now.
So my understanding was that
And that's new.
You know, and most companies like to get that done early because they're gonna put out an annual report.
So if you had July, August, September, and your audit was done by October, that would help the budget.
Yeah,
Yes, but we have to have a financial close, and I believe that was a problem. There were still changes being made in NIMRIC in December. I mean, right up to the end. Weren't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And you know about some of them, so.
I don't know.
so
Oh, okay.
aspirationally, right, we want.
So at the
two-
very beginning, when we became the finance committee, I do remember we asked about when, when is that year going to be closed? And I think she said that she had, by statute, 3 months. So, or maybe it was 2. Let's think.
If you don't have monthly closes, as Tom.
Okay, I know,
Tom
but
said, it's
at
very
some
hard.
point it has to be closed.
Well, let's say we closed it, let's say we.
And I
asked-
thought she said it had to be closed by the end of August.
Right.
That's
mean,
what I remember, but it definitely wasn't, so I don't know what was going on.
If we have all the prior steps in place, one would think it would facilitate / accelerate the year-end close, right? So,
I mean,
Well-
as soon as you have a close, you can start your audit.
okay,
I mean,
So I think we should recommend that the audit is done August, September, October.
Well, I think, I think. It's
well,
fine to
I don't
recommend
know
that.
at this, I mean, they just finished it, so I don't know what was going on.
But this is
Yeah,
it never used to happen. 3 years ago, it didn't happen like this. It
Oh,
happened.
it didn't,
No,
okay.
the audit was always ready in November in prior
Oh.
years. So it's not too aspirational to ask for the audit to
Okay.
be
But
ready in November.
has
Yeah.
the, if I can ask, is the auditor remain the same? Does the auditor have personnel issues? And more importantly,
Well, the issue was that the auditor would come in and they would give us a certain amount of time. The records wouldn't be ready, so they'd go off to another client. And then by the time we got them back, we were seeing the audit in February. So if everything was ready for the auditor and we booked the auditor, there may not be such problems.
The problem this year I totally agree that having the audit ready, is important, is very important. The problem is going to be that the process this year of changing the way we report is going to happen at exactly the same time as we would want the books to be accelerated closing.
This
You
is.
can't do both at the same time.
This seems like a bridge too far,
Right, yeah,
considering we have less than a month before the fiscal year end.
right,
So we're talking about November 2020.
right,
Okay.
yeah. So
Is Newbrick, is that
it's a computer system,
is it NMRIC?
NEMRC.
Okay, I'm sorry.
NEMRC, probably New England Management Reporting, something. I don't know, maybe. I'm not sure what it stands for. Yeah, but everyone just calls it NIM.
Apologies.
Yeah, that's right. So, all right, so these are the things.
can we, sorry, can we, since, we're 6 now, potentially 7, can we quickly by bullet sort of say, we'd like this resolved by a certain date?
I'm coming to that.
Okay,
Well, sorry. Sorry, I'm coming to a high level of that. I think when we're done with this, with the work
because these are
plan.
very big chunks, that's why I
Yeah,
was wondering.
correct.
I wouldn't want to have a bullet just for management reporting and forecasting.
Right. So on the next page, I've sort of highlighted the half of the things I think we could try
Oh, there you go.
to get to. The first 2 points go together. If you get the first point, it takes a day to get the second point. Right? I mean, if you've done the work to get a monthly income statement and a balance report, I'm calling it not a balance sheet, but if you've got the database to do that, it's very simple to summarize it. So, and in order to, an easily accessible history, I think we will get. It would be great to get the data reconciled to and driven by the capital plan and the personnel plan, which means that we need 3 work plans, not just one. I have a management reporting and forecasting one to do the
Mm-hmm.
to do the first three bullet points, history, summary reports, but it would be great to have a plan to work on the capital plan and the personnel plan in some form that will input into the budget process by September, October. And that's what we're gonna talk about after we just finish this topic.
Is Eric in agreement with all this?
Eric is broadly in agree. I haven't shared this with him yet. Eric, I think, would be in agreement. Eric's in agreement with the idea that we have to manage reporting and forecasting.
Okay.
So does that mean, so the target right now is red stuff in 2023, let's call it like this
Right.
broadly. And then the black stuff, potentially 2024.
Right, and the first part of, correct, and I think history-based monthly forecasting could happen as soon as even during November, December, because if we have
Yeah.
the system, we can, doing the monthly forecast the scaling is really easy. It's just a
True,
formula.
true.
But I wouldn't have it, we don't need it for September.
Yeah.
We need it for November, December, or maybe January, whatever.
Got it.
So my suggestion then, and here's sort of a work plan, and I've talked to Ellen and Tom about this. Ellen, because I think, she has an affinity for this kind of work, and Tom, because he came on and said, where could we use help? And I said, well, here. And also because I think that in the other areas, Jill, I mean, you obviously on the capital plan, and we should just talk about the personnel plan. So here are the steps, and this isn't maybe 100% complete, but it's rough. We need to, we have a financial database. I've done this project. I did it and didn't get it to the level where it could be used by the town. That's what this giant spreadsheet is, and that's one tab out of 30 that I sent to you, Tom, from that model. So every piece of this is kind of dirty. So just as an example, when reconciling it to the,
By the way, if you hadn't said that, I was gonna bring it up.
Yeah.
Because the fat finger error issue here, if you're trying to take data from one pool
Right.
to another, you're gonna corrupt one out of every 200 line items.
right, exactly.
Inadvertently, and this is a monumental issue.
Right.
And do we really have the staff or the inclination or the capability?
Well, the reason, which is why reconciling it to the audit is really important. So I have a list it's possible to take our NIMRIC data, which is our data, and put it into an Excel spreadsheet. It's not trivial, but it's possible. The auditors have a spreadsheet. Of course, it's not the same format. I mean, it's not even close. But it took a long time, but I got it to the point where we could take the auditor's spreadsheet, push a button, and compare it to NIMRIC and say, account by account, here's what NIMRIC says, here's what the auditors say. If there's a difference, put it on the list. And there's 10 things per year that are different. These are for closed, these are for years where the audit's completed.
That's not terrible.
It's not, well, it depends. It's not as much work. It's not a huge amount of work to fix it.
No, I was thinking 10 things wrong is not terrible.
No,
Out of how many line items?
I mean, 100,000, 1,000.
Okay.
Well, no, but I mean, it should be zero.
Yeah, in perfect world.
No. I mean, at my companies, it was zero.
I should have had.
I mean, the process, the process, the point is, this is sort of Ellen's point. The process is, there's a process which says we're going to keep working on this until it's zero, and then we
Yes.
shut it and it will always be zero because no one can ever go back.
Right.
So what's maybe the way to say, instead of it's good or bad, is that process didn't take place. It's not a huge process, but until it takes place, the process should exist. So, okay, anyway, so we update the financial database. I've just talked to Zoe about that today. I believe, based on what we've done before, that we can do that in the next week, and I'll do that. We need to agree. I've separated in this the income statements, which is what we talked about in the budget, versus the balance sheet, the fund balances, because I don't really understand how they're accounted for in municipal accounting. I think that they're not unlike a balance sheet, like we have this much money in a pile net, but I think that's the case, but we need to investigate that. And Ellen and I have talked about this need. So we would agree on the structure of the income statement reports quickly.
Can I, this is a
Yeah.
tiny thing. So the reports are not called income statements in
Correct.
a municipality.
I'm just,
What's
In a
the
non-profit,
term?
I don't, but in a non-profit, we use statement of accounts,
fine, or statement of
As-
activity.
statement of activity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
thank
Yeah,
you.
that's fine. Statement of activity. Yeah, it's, the interesting thing is whether or not we should call it an income statement because of the three, let's say that there's 5 people and, well, let's say that there's 15 people on the payroll here who look at it, and there's 3,000 people in the community. Of the 3,015 people, 3,000 of them are going to call them income statements.
Yeah, but there's no fighting that battle for the sake of 3 words.
Fine.
Frankly, statement of activity makes me think of a cash flow.
Yeah.
Statement rather than an income statement.
A-
But
anyway,
anyway,
I'm going to
okay.
keep, for us, I'm going to keep using it until someone
Okay.
complains, but I understand your point, and we can be totally flexible on that. It's just faster to call it what it is. Agree on a structure of the report. So my thought is John, Ellen and Tom, the 3 of us are going to, this would be our project. And so the 3 of us, you'll delegate to us, we'll agree on a simple income statement. I have a draft from my prior project, but you guys, needs to see some eyes. Then we need to map the existing accounts. And I have done that mapping for the town, which has about 900 accounts. The town is one fund out of 12. But many of it's really but the village account is the only other one I think that has a lot of accounts in it. So we probably end up, I remember, with 1,800 or 2,000
You
accounts
said
total.
the term account. Is there a single checkbook or there's just,
Well,
I don't know. I mean accounting accounts.
yeah, I
do you mean bank
understand.
account?
No, there's more than one bank.
Yeah, but they were gonna close some of them and consolidate everything. That was the plan, at least.
Yeah, I don't know how
That
many
happened.
bank accounts
No,
there are.
it's
More
just
than one.
curiosity.
Yeah,
It's just.
I don't know.
More than one is the answer.
Yeah, I mean, because Joey spends quite a fair bit of time on reconciling with bank accounts. So, I mean, there has to be more than one. That's all I know, so basically, we would then map the income statement accounts to the simplified approach and review that with Eric and Zoe. And at that same meeting, my suggestion is that we discuss with them, we're going to need their help to figure out how to deal with the balances, because I just don't understand it. I've spent a lot of time with the revenues and expenses, but I don't understand the balances. And if someone else can do that beforehand, say a month from now, that's great. But otherwise, we'd sort of first do the income statement stuff, get that going, and then the balance stuff. Once we've agreed on the format, if we've downloaded the financial database, we should be able to produce income statement or statement of activity reports at the town, combined town and village by fund and by department within fund. It's just the mapping that you've got a database of all the transactions. It's going to be 25, it'll be 30,000 transactions. Oh, sorry, 30,000 accounts. It's the account level. So 30,000 accounts, each one of them, but it's simple. I mean, there's only,
No, John, yeah, I'm just, the fact that you've gotten it and you put this much thought into it already is.
it's a start. Yeah,
No, it's beyond a
all
start.
right, fine.
It's
So John,
impressive.
is the grand plan that NIMRIC just continues and the accountants continue, and then there's this transfer piece
Yeah.
that just happens until this changes, if ever.
Yeah, well, it depends. So Ellen and I talked about this. The worst platform we can put this on is Excel. The only platform we can put this on is Excel for now. So the objective is to put this what we're talking about, into Excel. The process of producing monthly reports at any level is going to be very quick. But once we produce this, it can be used for 2 things. One is we can use it month to month. And second is we can give it to Eric and say, okay, Eric, now you can explore whether or not to replace NIMRIC. If you replace NIMRIC, which could do this if we structured how we use NIMR, which might be able to do this. Maybe NIMR can do this, maybe some new system can do this, but this is what you want. We'll do this until you have a real system to
Right.
do it.
Okay.
And by the way, you need to have a real system to do it. This is not a good way of doing it, because I could leave and, the Excel macro could get corrupted and there's no, all that stuff. I mean, Microsoft isn't going to come in and fix it. So Ellen and I have talked about, so the grand plan is not to build a beautiful Excel model. It's an interim plan.
Right.
But my guess is it'll run on Excel for 2 years.
Can we? Sorry, I'll wait till we
Yeah,
get to the
okay.
last one.
So we produce kind of proxies by the middle of July. If we're lucky, we produce proxies of the income statement. It'll be in Excel, but you'll be able to pick, the department or the town or whatever, and we'll see it. At the same time, we'll then repeat the process with the fund balances. We'll design a format for a fund balance report, which I'm imagining is very, very simple, actually. For what we need, we really just need to know the balance and whether it's useful. Like, we've got these 13 pots, and these 3 can only be spent on highway and the other 10 or whatever. And we'll report those 13 numbers to you every month. But that's basically it. We'll just let the general ledger run and do its thing otherwise. And then once we've got the basic reports out and Zoe and Eric have seen them and edited them, them a little bit, we've got agreement and that's working. Then we would develop monthly forecasting. We just do the analysis, which is pretty straightforward, to build the forecast button. And then in the middle of August is what I'm saying, is we get together with Eric, Zoe, and us and review that. It's kind of a working system. It's not accessible really. It's on a spreadsheet. It's not maybe secured, or you can't put it on a website yet, but you can print things out and see it. And then we've got another month, basically. What we would load the FY24 data, use our forecasting to show the forecast, and then preview this basically and test it in the middle of September with the select board.
So there's nobody assigned to creating the historical monthly forecast?
No, not yet. I could do it.
Okay.
This is very aggressive.
Yeah.
Let's not put this on your shoulder.
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask you if you were interested in doing it, but I didn't know what else you were gonna, these other things.
I'm
Like,
happy to take a look at. I'm
Okay.
happy to work with somebody, because I think creating something based on historical data, I may interpret it a certain way, so a second set of eyes might be actually.
You need more than one person to do this.
good, so one of the two of you
Okay.
do. Good.
The only comment that I would make here, and this is just broad, is I'm always gonna revert back to pilot error, right? Fat finger, whatever you
Yeah.
wanna call it. And I'm so concerned about the amount of specific data and corrupting that data as we export that data to Excel, that my experience professionally was that we would hire 2 separate standalone institutions to export data and then look for inconsistencies between the two, right? Now, you can outsource this to folks who do this.
Yeah.
This is not, we're not splitting the atom here.
Yeah, we have no.
We don't
We don't
have a budget.
No, but I think there's a very simple way to, so I do this reconciliation process with the Economic Development Commission, which is one of those 12 funds,
Okay.
a small fund. I take the fund, it's the E fund. I take the E fund report, push a button, it goes into the EDC database. We keep, and I can add up, well, it's a little bit different because we have our own transactions. Anyway, what we can do when we translate it in is we will have all of the data to calculate the fund balances, or to calculate the total, say the funds are divided into revenue accounts and expense accounts. So we can have for each of the 12 accounts, we can push a button and have 12 numbers. Here's the revenue we have for this month. Here's the expense we have for this month for fund 1, or for actually just do it for the total funds. For all 12 funds, here's all the revenue, one number, and here's the expense. If those numbers don't match, we have a problem. And but we should be able to, just do it based on the totals. I mean, to the penny, you know what I mean? If it matches to the penny.
When you have a cash flow situation that you just described, I get that.
Yeah.
the variability of and the complexity of the current situation with the town in 1,700 different line items.
Right.
That may be that's an additional level of possible mistakes.
Okay, I think what you're talking about, I agree with you, but you're not talking about management. I'm not dismissing this. You're not talking about management reporting. You're talking about accurate accounting.
Hey, if we don't have the good data, right, we're puking the old data, as I would say.
So you're suggesting, well, if you're implying we should do something about this issue, then the question is when? If
Yeah,
you
I'm
think,
talking about, it's probably a year out.
oh, okay, fine.
What was it?
We should do this first.
Hey, we're gonna do this first.
Oh, fine.
Yeah. But ultimately, I believe that we need to be sure that the data that we generate for the system has been looked at by more than one set of eyes.
Right.
So that we don't have, I mean, I couldn't believe if we had built something here and then we make just a mistake.
Okay, if you're talking about the management reporting system. Okay, so,
So there's going to be some totals in whatever new reports you guys come up with that are the outputs in that Excel format. Those totals need to reconcile with the totals from which the system came from. So at least we have one level of checks and balances, which is, do the totals reconcile?
No, great.
Now, what's in between, there might be ups or downs.
salaries are too big and cement expense is too small, because there's a cement expense account that got put into salaries.
Right.
Precisely.
But at least I guess what we can try to do is build in some checks and balance processes, even if they're rudimentary. But we should think about that, so.
Well, let's just, as a practical, no, I totally, I totally agree that there's, a single point of failure.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
It's 2:00 and we've only talked about, we're still on
What's
number
that?
two.
Right,
And this is appearing to be a meeting that Tom and I don't need to be at.
Okay,
'cause
right.
We're not
Right,
involved.
but
in
I
the
do have
project.
I do have a question on the point where Tom and my name were at it, which is creation of the monthly forecast. We're not talking about using those 8 years that you sent in that database. Because I would much rather use the few years that were used to create the capital plan. Because frankly, 8 years ago, things could have changed so much from a seasonality point of view. Is there any way we could use a little bit more recent data to create that?
sorry,
seasonality?
we will have every year going back to 2015. So you can choose to use some of those years or all of them.
Yeah, but is it based on the new stuff you're building?
But this is a detailed
Yes, fine,
question.
yeah.
I don't need to be here. Tom doesn't need to be here.
Well,
Tom
Tom
doesn't
does-
need
No, I'm sorry, it's not a detail. If I'm gonna volunteer to do something, I don't want to volunteer dealing
Oh,
with that piece
Okay,
of crap data, right?
okay, sorry.
So, you can strike this from the minutes, but
There are no minutes.
that's what I was asking. Before I volunteer and put my name to it, I want to make sure that I'm not going to be using data that's impossible to look at.
Okay, well, let me discuss with the two of you this
Okay, that's
specific
fine.
stuff afterwards. I think Joe's making a good point. So, all right, I agree. This is a very aggressive schedule, but I think
Okay,
we'll sort of try to pursue it. And, it's,
and we need to add a succession plan down here somewhere, because whatever we're creating, somebody in the town, or at least two people, need to be trained to understand how it works. Because if we can't be part of the committee anymore, or if we decide to move, or one of us gets hit by a bus, they need to be able to take this on. So we need to add a succession plan.
yeah, well, we should talk about, let's talk at the next meeting about whether that's possible. And if it isn't possible, whether or not we should just cancel this. Those, I think, are our choices. I suspect the problem, is obvious. So, but I agree with you completely.
Yep.
To
I mean, at the end of the day, we're volunteers.
Right.
And the staff should be able to run this in case the volunteers are no more able to volunteer, right?
Agreed. All right, I agree completely. All right, so let's talk about the capital improvement plan. By the way, we don't need to talk about the long-term plan, because that
Okay.
is gonna come, I think, naturally from 2 and 3A and 3B. So let's just talk about the capital improvement plan. Can we get it into a place where it can feed the budget by October?
So, Tom, do you want to share the email that you sent today?
Sure, I don't know physically if I can do that on the Zoom call,
No,
but
just in words, just in words.
welcome. Well, the task we have before us is conceptually very simple. We have a long-term capital plan. We have taken and identified all the asset owners and the projected costs and replacement costs and so forth. What we need to do is take the most recent data for fiscal 23, actually fiscal 2022, I should say. We haven't taken that and replaced it with actual data for fiscal 22, and then add on an additional year. The issue in part is also going to be that we don't know, I don't know as I sit here, whether the categorization that Sarah Macy used for the long-term capital plan is identical to the annual budget figures, i.e., do we have columns where all the data is the same for the budget and for the capital plan? I would guess that it isn't. So we need to have someone, Sarah presumably, go and reconcile the budget to the projection in the capital plan for 22. And then obviously you're gonna have to do that again for 23 later. Go back to the asset owners and talk about what the differences are so we understand them, and then how the plan has changed and how the additional year should come into effect. Again, I think this is conceptually very simple, but it's a hell of a lot of work.
And it's not work that we can do. We didn't do it last time. Sarah Macy did it with, and that's what we put the money in the budget for, so that we could hire her again, but we've never had any conversations about actually hiring, whether she's available.
Yeah, by the way, as an editorial, I think it would be a great tragedy after all the good work we did, award-winning work for those who don't remember. The Municipal Bond Bank gave us an award for the best capital plan. It would be a tragedy to just let it go to waste.
Yeah.
I
So we need that conversation with Eric as soon as possible to make this useful.
If she were available, is the end result, so the end result is a capital plan, mechanically a spreadsheet that says in FY 24 here, in FY 25 for the budget, and for FY 24, let's say actual, here's the capital expenses that have to go into the income statement. That's
Yes.
That's the objective,
That's
right?
what she was building, right,
Right.
Tom?
Yes.
So hiring Sarah, I think is a great idea. It's a reactive idea. What's the ongoing plan going forward? We're gonna hire Sarah every year to update this thing, or?
It's not our purview. It's, we took on making a capital plan
Yeah.
when the management wasn't really prepared to do it.
Mhm.
And so we had Sarah coming in and
Yep.
she worked with Zoe. And we never made the plan going forwards, and that's evident because it hasn't been updated, because we had changes of town managers in that time, and we had a select board that.
So
But I think I have an answer to Kareem's question, though.
Yeah.
Imagine that we have a spreadsheet that Tom described that has a list of every asset that the town has, and the data that says, you know, this is 5 years and this is
It has a finite life, or it has a 5-year life.
whatever it is, and here's the depreciation schedule, whatever, and here's the list to it.
By the way, 6 years
At
is what it's.
Okay.
And we've done that,
But yeah,
we've
right,
done that,
right, we
right?
got-
We've done all that.
But imagine we get it updated to today, to
Yeah.
whenever today is, October, whatever. We then say to Eric, Eric, you should change your process. We recommend that in order to keep this going, you change your process for purchasing any capital asset. And that the process is, instead of having one account for every capital asset, right? You now have one line in this spreadsheet for every capital asset. And the way that you approve capital assets is you approve adding a line to the Excel spreadsheet. Once that happens, you get rid of all of your capital accounts,
Agreed.
and you have, for each department, capital expenditures.
And when some item on that list turns out,
Right.
it's removed from the
Or,
spreadsheet.
well, no,
Yes.
no, it's identified as no longer active, so it
So I
stays on the
guess-
spreadsheet.
I guess the point I was trying to make
Yeah.
wasn't to put you, Jill, or Tom, on the
but-
spot. What was more, there's a heavy lift now to update it, right? I think we need to get past that. And once that's done, what's the ongoing process?
So it's a
That's it.
succession plan,
Yeah.
same.
Well, in a way, yes. I mean, it's the same thought process, but
Yep.
we have to make sure that that action is captured on the
Yeah.
to-do. So, okay.
And I guess the point that I was making also to add to what you're saying is that the process of maintaining this is no more work than the current process of buying a capital asset.
So
I agree.
It's the same
what
amount.
would the process be to see if Sarah was, one, available,
Right.
and two, if we can go forward for her to
Talk
update?
to Eric.
And who
because-
would be the person that would talk to her?
Well, I think Jill and Tom.
Jill and Tom, because they're owning that.
Okay.
piece, yeah.
And do you, if she was available, is this work doable based on what the last time you did it, is it doable before January? You know what I mean? If
So
she's available.
there's two pieces of work. So one piece of work is to go back in. I don't know what order you do it in, but go back in and make sure that everything that was decided in FY 23 is in the capital plan.
Yeah.
So at least you're up to date to
Mhm.
the current year. And then the next stage is to do your capital plan for FY 20. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I got my years wrong, right? We already have a budget for FY 24.
So 25.
So 24 and 23 should be in the capital plan. That data should already be existing.
But it might have to be gathered into one place.
Yes, it's work.
Right.
So, but it's not talking to the managers. It's already existing.
Yeah.
Then the next stage is getting your capital plan ready for the next year. Should be part of the budget process.
And we don't need Sarah for that, right?
I don't know. I can't touch a spreadsheet. Tom can't touch a spreadsheet. So we don't own the spreadsheet, so we can't tell you.
So as part of the update, not only updating the numbers, but potentially adding lines, such as if we decide, for example, to add to it the sewer piece, et cetera, it would be added, right?
So there's a
Because there's update and
placeholder. There's
update,
a
right?
placeholder for the sewer plan.
Okay,
But,
Yeah.
and it needs to be
Yeah.
elaborated now.
Okay.
There's a placeholder for the town hall.
got it.
So there's placeholders for all these things, but the conversations haven't, those conversations haven't.
Right.
happened.
Okay,
But if you think about a fire truck,
Yep.
that data is all existing.
yeah, that should, that's.
Think about the nebulous things that have to be done.
So in terms of the entire budget, in just broad strokes, are the capital improvement plan and those larger items, is that 60% of the budget? Is it 30% of the budget? Is it 80% of the budget?
We don't know.
It's
Well,
probably 20% would be my guess.
If you take off the people, what percentage of the budget is people?
I don't, again, you can't, it's not easy to say that.
We don't know.
But, no, we,
It depends if you.
Hey,
but it's less than half. It's less than half.
Okay,
It
let's-
depends also if you include the big ticket items that are right now nebulous, like the sewer plant or like the town hall or like.
Mhm.
I know school is funded through state, but ultimately it's gonna have to be paid by people here, so. It's.
Yeah, but that's truly not
Yeah.
part of it. It's less, definitely less. It's a 6.5, the town and the village together is $7 million of expenses.
Including capital.
Including capital expenses.
That's what I was asking.
Okay,
So let's just talk though, just looking ahead a little bit, it seems to me, Jill, that the discussions about the FY 25 additions to the capital plan,
Yes,
if the capital plan spreadsheet that you described somehow gets done by Sarah,
yes,
we should be able to use that along with the management reporting that we were
Yes.
talking about, and and the personnel spreadsheet. And with those three things, we should be able to work with those in the budget meetings, right?
because then in the budget meeting, your manager should come to you and say, I know that this is in the capital plan, but actually the machine's
Right.
going to break down earlier.
Right.
And then you're talking about an exception rather than doing it all over again.
Or they may say, I told you when we did the capital plan, I might need to add a new fire truck. I'm going to propose that we add a new fire truck.
Yes.
Because we can have that discussion.
But it's a very it's a conversation that's bounded by some history.
Right. We don't have to ask about all the history. That's what you're
Yeah.
saying.
No, it's been done. The thinking was all done
Right,
2
exactly.
years ago.
Okay.
But it wasn't
Yeah,
done
that-
this year.
So what we
I-
need
I
is
think-
Sarah. Sorry. go
Yeah.
ahead.
I was to say, I think that's very important. We've been through this whole process with the asset owners as to, in a fire truck example, how old are your fire trucks? What's the replacement schedule for each of them? So when you get to the budget for the fire department, they should be able to say, look, in the capital budget, we have engine number 6 replaced in fiscal 26, six, now it's gonna go back to fiscal 25 or fiscal 24. Or it's gonna extend out, but you should be able to have that discussion pretty easily with some good frame of reference, because you've already thought through it once.
I have a stupid question. If Sarah's not available, what happens to this thing? Okay.
We don't
The
have
answer.
we don't have a plan B.
No.
Okay, let's hope plan A works.
Right, can we just talk briefly about the personnel, because I have a question, and Ellen, it's not so much putting you on the spot, because you can absolutely say no. But I'm wondering, given the fact that you said, you know, our discussion about your expertise, or, you know, you and I both have the same level of expertise around the balance sheet, which is somewhat limited. Would you be interested, there's nobody to drive the personnel database. Would you be interested in working with Zoe on that? You could say no. You really can. I mean, totally, you really can. I'm thinking,
Well, it sounds like you're gonna be doing a lot of the management reports. So-
and I think I have input
And
from
it's-
you, and I'm gonna be doing a lot of
Yeah.
all of the Excel work in it.
Right. Yeah, we used to call that the manpower report. So
Perfect.
I have done it before.
How about person, but now it's got to be person power.
Well,
So-
there was always an issue around counting contractors. So we would have to iron that out.
Yeah, but the fact that you know that it has to be ironed out, that's perfect.
So can I, if I could add to this conversation, because I know Ellen, because we had a few chats about it.
Mhm.
You were looking at, and I don't know where that project went. You were looking at the benefit contribution allocation, employer versus employee.
Yeah.
That would go nicely hand in hand with doing that, and perhaps finishing that other project. In as much as at least we have, I think.
Well,
the
I did
town-
finish that project and I shared the information with John.
Okay,
The
so
council
what
is proprietary, so
Is it
it's up
90%
to him to
town,
pass it
10%
on to the
employees?
select board.
Can I just suggest that I think that the benefit discussion is very, like many things, is very important. But I think we will have trouble. It's a real issue. It will take time. I was told by one select board person that they are going to implement a change in the benefit sharing, or whatever you call the proportion of the
Yeah,
cost
yeah.
that they're going to implement or propose that the select board is on board, they're gonna have that discussion
Okay,
and increase it. So they're moving in the right direction.
all right. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because by doing a little bit of benchmarking, I saw that the municipalities generally contribute 70%
Right.
and employees 30%, which would be a huge amount of savings.
Right.
We're running the risk of having people leave, but I don't know if wherever they go, they might still have to contribute 30%.
Right.
The other thing is the contracts, so
Yeah. then
it's
you-
actually in the
you-
contract.
Yeah.
So then we get to a point where it's really whoever is negotiating the contract to
Yeah.
get that change.
I think we have some number of years left on those contracts,
Okay.
I think.
So
I guess,
that's not gonna change until,
I guess the critical question is, do we feel that there's enough critical mass savings to spend more time on it?
Right.
The answer is yes, then we should spend the time. That's it.
Yeah, there may be.
Okay.
It's a fair point, Kareem.
Yeah.
This isn't gonna save us any money,
The,
the work plan.
well.
Well, it's not gonna say-
Actually, yes and no.
It
I mean,
might lead to better decision
Yes,
making, and that will
which may
save
save-
yeah,
mistakes and costly mistakes.
Fair enough, but
It
it's,
removes the tail.
The lack of these reports, we can
Yeah.
document some very expensive mistakes.
fair enough, but it's,
I guess what I'm trying to say is work has been done on that. I understand the proprietary nature and sensitive nature of the information, and that's why it's only shared between two people now, plus maybe Eric and the select board, right? But if there is significant number of savings, I do think this should bubble up, at some point.
well, if there is simple benchmark, I mean, to me, can I just make a suggestion? Ellen, could you just brief Kareem on this? Take me out of this loop. If you've got, if you can just share with Ellen the data that you just
I
described.
just found them on Google, but I'm
Yeah.
happy to go purchase the paying model of ChatGPT, and I'll run you benchmarks until you guys are blue in the face. $25 a month. Go in there and we can do as many benchmarks as we want and it'll be done in 2 hours.
It's
But
free.
it's only, okay,
It might just
it's
be made
only,
up.
it's only
Yes.
Not
that
the
the
paying
select
version.
board, the
Don't
select board
accurate.
has to have a will to implement it.
Well, let's get, it certainly
We
is.
know it's high and
Yeah.
we could be paying less.
Well, look, we clearly, this is the sort of thing where it's not going to take a lot of work. It's just conveying the information. So it doesn't detract from our agenda. Why don't you and Ellen follow up on that?
Sure, I'm fine, Alan, if you're willing to spend some time with me, we can think through maybe how we put it in a slide or two and put it in front of the select board and tell them, hey, you gotta make a decision what you wanna do, or Eric first, probably.
No, I think to go to Eric first.
Yeah, and then, you know, hey, do you wanna take this to the select board? Because you got an opportunity to save a few bucks.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah, that seems to not distract us. So Ellen, I'm gonna take your non-response as a yes.
Okay.
Because,
That is a true reach around.
yeah.
She hasn't objected.
She hasn't objected yet. We've given her like 6 minutes. So it sounds like you already have a manpower plan idea in mind. So really all that matters is that at the end, the form of it makes it easy to transfer it into the line items that are in the management report, which is basically going to be salary and benefits, I think. Well, whatever we decide, you'll be part of the discussion where you, Tom, and I agree on what the income statement will look like. So don't do anything on the personnel plan until we decide that. And then once we decide that, then that manpower spreadsheet is going to power one of those line items, or possibly, sorry, 2 of them. I'm guessing 2 of those line items, salaries and benefits.
and then Ellen, if you wanna kick around, brainstorm some ideas on what should be all the fields that would need to be sent to everybody to fill this up, I'm happy to sit down, Zoom or not Zoom, and we can kick this around if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, so, and then, sorry, let's just, one last point on, I said we didn't have to discuss the long-term plan, but I think what we need to discuss is the following. Do we need to have a long-term plan for this year's budget cycle?
I don't think we can.
And what a long-term, here's the most, I think I've done a lot of these long-term plans, right? If we have a good database where we can forecast FY 23 current fiscal year, or even FY 24 actual, we can just put in an inflation rate, take the capital, we have the capital plan numbers out through the end of those assets. We can simply put in an inflation rate and say, this is what we think is going to happen.
So what I'm
But-
saying is, how would it translate into, you know, property taxes, or do we have other
Correct.
ideas how to fund it?
Yeah.
Okay.
How much borrowing would we need to do against this, you know, but I think that's not that we will get it. Unless a long-term plan for this year's budget cycle is absolutely necessary, we will damage the credibility of the eventual long-term plan by doing it this quickly.
I
Well,
agree.
except
Yeah.
that we need to be aware of what big decisions are going to come up in next year's town meeting. So is the buying the water company coming up? Is the $18 million sewer plant coming up? Because we shouldn't be making those decisions in the absence of even the best long-term plan.
So
Even if it's not great.
okay, so, but so I'm distinguishing between, do we need this in October or do we need it in February?
I think Eric's got to be part of that, like when.
I think however long it takes to give a viable plan
Yeah.
versus a half-assed plan.
Oh.
My issue is if we are rushing to deliver when we are less confident about the quality of what we're
Yeah,
providing,
right.
I think that could do more damage.
Yeah.
I agree in principle, except for the decisions that are going to have to be made. I'd like to know when the decisions are going to be made. And then we have to have a very good conversation about, there's the risk of making the decisions about $18 million plus in the absence of any plan versus making it in the realm of where you've got something.
So one way to look at it is, those decisions, are they elective, or are they, we don't have a choice? Like, if the EPA comes and says, you don't have a choice, you're gonna have to fix this, or somebody says the water plant, these guys don't wanna run it anymore, if we don't take it over, we're not gonna have water anymore. Whether we have a long-term plan or not, we're gonna have to make a decision. You see what I'm trying to say?
The
Is it mandatory
well,
or?
the wastewater treatment plant upgrade is mandatory, but how much it costs and what you do,
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
And the term of that, I spent a lot of time on this, and the term, when you can comply, when you initiate compliance and how they define compliance is a long tail.
I guess I don't wanna get, what I was trying to say is, some of those big decisions may need to be made, whether we have a long-term plan in place.
How they finance though is, I think, we've never tackled the question of what do we put on bonds, what do we put on short-term loans,
Yeah.
and what do we pay out with the cash we
All
have?
right, let me make a suggestion. I think I think we might be able to have our cake and eat it too if we divide and conquer. What I'm gonna conclude from this, would this process work? Between now and early October, even if we start the budget process a little bit before that, because, by the way, the initial month or so of the budget process is the department's working. We're not that involved. We kind of see so we've got a little bit of breathing room. Between now and when we get engaged in the budget meetings, I think we should be focused on the management plan, the capital improvement plan, and the personnel and the manpower plan, because that's what we need as direct input to the budget. As soon as the budget process starts, we divide up in half. Half of the people, or 2/3 of the people, 4 of us, let's say, go through the budget meetings. 2 people work on the long-term plan from October to February. I'm confident that because if we focus in particular on the decisions that will be in town meeting in March of 2024, there's only going to be 2 or 3 things. It's not going to be the high school, it might be this water plant, it might be the water and sewer. Maybe something will happen in the high school, I don't know, but it's a small number of projects that are big numbers.
Right.
And we'll be able at a minimum to say, Tom McCoy can help us with understanding how things would be financed and what the likely finance costs would be. We'll have rough estimates at that point of the capital costs. The estimates may be terrible, but it's not on us,
Right.
and we can just simply do some simple conversions into, look, here's the FY24 budget that is about to be passed.
On a one-off basis, yeah.
Yeah, my point, Tom, is that it will be helpful to have that. It will be good enough to be helpful. But what we'll have to do is start working on it in October, which means that we can't all go through the budget meeting process. Some of
Right.
us will have to work on the long-term plan. I think that's a good division of labor.
If we could, that's why I want to bring back up whatever I was talking about at the beginning. We could maybe accelerate advertising that there's still one slot open, and if we can get somebody of the caliber of Tom, or even half the caliber of Tom.
Oh, please.
It would be great to have an additional person on the FC,
Yeah. That's fine.
So would you mind chatting with?
No, that's fine. I'll go talk to Eric about it right now. Yep. It's really Nikki that I have to talk to, but yeah. Okay.
What?
But I think Corinne would like to write the post.
Oh, write the post, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much.
Well, no, you know what?
written.
Could you talk to Eric?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, great. No, and tell him,
And write the post.
and right.
Do we have a link to like a website that explains what we do or something? Because all they have to do is put a link in there.
Let me see what's on it. We do. We had Woodstock it's the Woodstock-Vermont.com/finance.
Woodstock-Vermont. Okay, I'll take a look at that. All right, I'll take care of pushing to post this thing.
Okay,
again.
great.
And Tom, so you and I talk about the capital plan and talking to Eric.
Yes,
I wrote, a long time ago, I wrote a plan of what we needed to do. So maybe we can go back and update that.
But I think you've got to talk to, I'm talking to Eric, you said that. So.
Yeah.
And then there are 2 meetings. Ellen, I'll follow up with you on the manpower plan, and Ellen, Tom, and I.
You're not allowed to call it the manpower plan, are you?
Sorry, the personnel plan. The personnel plan, and
Sorry, just out of defiance, I have to draw the line. I will call them in.
when became a select board member, I managed to get the letters downstairs on the board changed from select men to select people
Huh.
or select board.
Well,
Like,
So I won't give up.
still, select board, I love.
Select board.
all right, and then I will meet with, I'm gonna, I have 1 week of work to do before we meet to talk about the structure of the income statement, but I will actually send you a copy of the structure that I had the last time.
I would love you to send me the structure.
Yeah.
So I could review that, so at least I have some basis of.
Well,
Yeah.
well, actually, the one, you know what, I'll follow up. Let's keep, the
Yeah,
three of us are
the
gonna
three of
follow
us.
up on historical, on forecasting.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about, maybe at the end of the meeting. we can
Yeah,
talk
well, I think
about
we may be at the, oh, sorry, you wanted to do the police
The
update.
police update is gonna be pretty simple. Go ahead, John, I can add.
Okay, I just pulled it. It's like a long time ago. All right, so we interviewed Robbie because he's leaving in July, and so we wanted to just get his brain dumped before he leaves. So I've written all this down and can just share it with you, but really his main point was that the biggest opportunity to maintain costs is to consolidate the village and the town officer functions. Because there's so much complexity and wasted time and scheduling stuff going on in tracking hours, that all of that could go away if it just became one police department.
And that can be done without having to go through the political marasm of getting rid of the village structure versus
Right.
the town structure, which is, it's very emotional to a lot of people apparently. So,
Yep.
So that's more like a process. But at the same time, he did say that optically there may be resistance from the town folks who are going to potentially bear a little bit of a higher cost. But we need to explain to them they're going to get a high level of service as well.
Including the business owners outside of the village, and then the likeliest opposition would come from business owners within the village, because what you're talking about is potentially less coverage.
Why would you have to change the coverage in order to abolish the timekeeping? Like, what if everyone did exactly what they did now, but they just didn't do
The
timekeeping?
problem is that we have the village police department doesn't go on to, as an example, Prosper Road. Like guys are driving 70 miles an hour on a dirt road.
Right.
And the village won't go there.
But that's not big, that's not,
No.
that can be fixed. That is completely independent from this idea.
Oh, I thought they were one and the same. I thought he wanted to consolidate the village and the town.
Yes, but have village in the town and no one go to Prospect Road.
No, but it's more
Pros-
than, it's not, okay, so I think maybe we've mixed up two
Okay,
ideas, don't you?
yeah. I may have misinterpreted.
No.
So,
I don't.
There's the timekeeping. So right now, there is an officer who's called a town officer. And he is allowed to do certain things and he's not allowed to do other things. And there are people called village officers. And they have specific duties too.
Oh, so this is specific to the police department.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
okay, I apologize.
That's fine.
yeah.
So that seems, if you, without getting into the details of it, that is something that is worth investigating, and Eric is interested in investigating it. But, so one of the purposes of interviewing Robbie was to find out more about his ideas for cost saving. And he basically said, there really aren't any except for this one, and any opportunities to increase revenue are small, right?
right, and, okay, so I don't want to react during that meeting, because really, we were just kind of trying to get a brain dump.
Remember, this is public.
Yes, and we only had a limited amount of time, frankly. And I think at some point we might need to do a little bit of benchmarking to understand the size of the force compared to other towns with the same sort of safety profile, et cetera. But Robbie did bring up a very good point by saying that having on Route 4 traffic police sends a message to whoever might have the idea to come here and do some mischief after hours, because they see that the police is there.
That's
So,
interesting.
yeah, so that I thought was a very, very good point, okay? And then he talked a little bit about the midnight shift and, whether there is absolutely necessity for the midnight shift. And he said they go do business checks and there's a cruiser that drives around. I personally haven't seen one. And I haven't experienced, business check at my business, which doesn't mean that it's not happening. What I'm saying is, to what extent that activity is actually taking place at a level, that would justify still having the night shift officer. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
I think benchmarking is absolutely critical, and we've decided not to do it this year, which I totally support.
The one challenge we have is there is, ebbs and flows of people, right? There's the tourist season where you have way more than 3,000 people in town, right? Which creates a different profile from a density point of view. On the other hand, you can look at it that the town doesn't attract, generally riffraff that comes here, quote unquote riffraff, right? People who come to Vermont, people who come to Woodstock, Vermont, are, not necessarily people are coming just to party and get drunk, et cetera. They're coming because they're interested in hikes, et cetera, and historical things, whatever it is, right?
You've been in town on Saturday.
So,
There's
well,
wedding parties who come in
have you
just to
been-
get drunk.
have you been in town on Saturdays in Miami?
Yes.
Okay, fine. That's the point I was trying to make.
Fair to-
So,
Yeah.
so it's a discussion that's a little bit broader and, just finding a benchmark doesn't mean that necessarily we need to reduce or increase the police force. I don't know.
But it's a conversation that people are interested in having.
If I can ask, the sequence when he was talking about during this brain dump, was his first topic he brought up combining the village and town and the consolidation? Or did he talk about something else before that? I'm just talking about sequence.
It's the first thing I've made a note of.
I don't remember, but that topic came up when we had budget conversations. When we met for the budgets for
So this is
2024.
truly top of mind for him. It must be a pain in the ass, excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For this.
It's
And
it's really complicated. I mean, just to sit and ask the questions, it was so hard to understand the answers.
so, and you're saying we could do that without a town vote?
From a financial point of view, probably,
No.
no?
No. It depends what the that is. This is really, we could eliminate all of the wasted time without a town vote. We can't eliminate the village.
Oh,
Or
I said
even
vote,
necessarily-
I thought you meant merger.
No. To merge the two, I would call them occupational disciplines that are being operated simultaneously between the village and the town.
You mean like, well, it is one police department. It only converges at the people level.
That's what I'm saying.
No, there is currently only one police department,
Yeah, so that, but yet,
but those people are allocating their time and
Right.
some of their responsibilities are assigned based on,
and some amount of time is also just in this allocation process.
correct, that's the
Yes.
part.
Does that automatically mean that the whole budget shifts over to the town?
In the
Not,
future?
or, yeah,
Town, no, the town currently budgets for the entire police department as expense. And then budgets revenue from the village to pay for part of it. That's
Right,
we,
other way around.
oh, sorry, the village, sorry, it's the other way, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, the village budgets has the whole police department budget.
But- does simplifying this reporting, capturing hours, mean automatically that it all gets moved into the town budget?
No.
It doesn't, okay. Because then there may be pushback from the, the village trustees, because the only thing they'll have to vote on is decorating the trees. Right, which is.
No,
not-
but they have the village, but they have the police
Yeah,
budget.
that's why I was
Also the parades.
asking,
They're
huh?
also the parades.
That's why I was asking if doing this would mean automatically needing to shift the entire budget.
Oh, no.
Okay, that's fine.
Got it.
Okay,
But so I think the whole point of our interview was, that is the one point that is
Yeah.
worth.
Yeah.
It's worth further.
That's the
discussion.
takeaway.
right.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so just to adhere to Robert's rules, which we have not, well, which we have done actually, so we haven't violated them specifically. We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
No, I.
Make a motion to
Thank you.
adjourn.
Second by Tom, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned at 2:35.
Thank you all.
Sire,
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
you and I, we can chat.
So